Hello, everybody. Happy Monday morning. We've got a little visitor with us this morning. Hopefully, he doesn't cause too much trouble, but hopefully, you all had a wonderful weekend. We're so happy to have you back. Today, on our Monday morning coffee talk podcast / live stream, we have the wonderful Krista Treu Derington with us. Welcome, Krista. And it looks like you're still muted if you want to unmute real quick. So the folks.
Oh, okay, perfect.
There we go. Now we can hear you.
Yay!
So how are you doing this morning?
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Doing good, just about as any other day.
Yeah, it's nice. It's sunny here in Utah, so the weather should be good. We're kind of, I guess we're not having the heat wave that we were having last week anymore, but still nice and warm. It's not 50 degrees anymore, which is quite a nice change of pace. So for those of you that are tuning in, please do remember that chat is open for you if you have any questions as we go through today. But a little bit about Krista. She is a ballroom dancing professional, mainly smooth, if I remember correctly, but you teach everything and you've danced everything. She is a dancing mom. She is and I'm gonna mess this up. I know we just went over it. SeneGence. Hey, SeneGence distributor. And if you couldn't tell by her t-shirt, she was a cast member for Strictly Ballroom the Musical. So we're gonna.
Sorry, it's backwards. Sorry.
Actually, you're good. For whatever reason, I think I turned off mirroring, so it is actually reading correctly on screen.
Oh. Oops, sorry. Hold on.
You're okay. So we're going to talk about kind of growing up in ballroom dance and deciding to turn professional and teach and compete. And then we'll dive into some more of the makeup-y and the Strictly Ballroom stuff. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about kind of growing up in ballroom dance. I know you're from a big ballroom dancing family. Was it something that you guys did as kids, or was it something that you all kind of found in college?
It is my mother's fault. We'll blame it on her. She was a ballroom dancer at BYU. She actually didn't go to BYU for ballroom. She went to BYU for ballet and had a scholarship for ballet, and then discovered ballroom because she would pass classes that had guys. And she'd be like, wait a second, I want to be in the dancing classes with the guys. I don't want to be in an all-girl class anymore. So she made the switch. And then yeah, like when I was in, I believe, third or fourth grade, she started an elementary ballroom program at Northridge Elementary. It is still there, and she is still teaching, and she still is in charge of the Alpine School District ballroom program, which is massive now.
Yeah.
So that's how I started. That's how all of my siblings started, and then we all four of us ended up feeding into the BYU youth program. And then we all ended up going to BYU on BYU ballroom scholarship. Well, mine was a dance, just general dance scholarship. And I think theirs were ballroom scholarships. And we all danced all the way through, back up toward a tour team. And we all went on tours. Like, yeah, our family is a little crazy. That's for sure.
But it's nice that you have kind of this. I would think it would be nice that you would have this kind of unifying skill set and hobby and kind of outreach thing that you do all together. I feel like it could either be really good and give you like this family pride, or it could be really infuriating and cause issues between siblings on like who.
I think when we were younger, it created a little bit of rivalry, not as bad, but a little bit, because at one point our ages crossed over, and like, for example, me, so I'm the oldest of the four of us, and then Kyle comes next, and then Casey, and then Carly. I think there was a year where there was three of us in the same age category, and so we all ended up competing against each other.
Wow.
And then obviously when you move into the amateur level, like that's college age. And so we all ended up competing against each other at some point during our elementary to college age. And we got better the older we got, about like, good job, you did it today. Got better about it. And so But when we were younger, it was definitely like it was a thing. So
Yeah, and I can imagine too being the oldest of that group, feeling like if I'm up against my younger siblings, I need to beat them. Otherwise, I'm going to hear about it for like the next month or so.
yeah, I don't think it, I mean, what's really cool is that we all definitely have our own personalities when it comes to dance.
Mhm.
And I think I was a little bit more laid back than, and I probably shouldn't say names because they would probably get really mad at me if they saw this. And then they were like, why did you say that about me?
Right.
Out of the four of us, I was like middle ground. I wasn't like, I was competitive deep down,
Mm-hmm.
but I also wouldn't hold a grudge against them if they beat me, or vice versa. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So, but there's definitely one of them out of the group of four that is pretty dang competitive. I'm
A
not
little
gonna say
intense.
not gonna say the name, not gonna say it. So,
Fair enough. Fair enough. So post BYU, did you go straight into teaching, or did you explore other career paths before finally settling on ballroom dance?
um, well, what's really interesting is, and I'll throw this in there because I think it helps helped me figure out what I wanted to do. So, besides ballroom dancing, I also grew up as a ballet, jazz, modern dancer, and participated in as much as I could on the side of my ballroom dancing. When I was younger, I was a studio dancer, meaning that I did the jazz, the ballet, hip hop thing, and then
Yeah.
I also did ballroom. And at one point, it became too much, and my mom's like, "Okay, you got to choose one or the other."
Mm-hmm.
Like, financially, because all hobbies are expensive.
Oh,
I don't
yes.
want to say dance specifically because if I were to compare it to golfing or anything else, it's about the same, you
Yeah.
know. But my mom was like, "You got to choose one or the other," and so I chose to continue my private lessons and dance on a competitive ballroom team when I got to high school, about high school age, and then I continued to dance. Am I still there?
You're back.
Okay, sorry. Got a phone call. I deleted it really quick or declined it. Um, but then I still participated in my high school dance company, like all of high school. And then when I got to BYU, I decided to be a dance education major and
Okay.
graduated in dance education. And at BYU, the dance education program is modern dance based.
Okay.
So I was still required to take all the ballet classes, all the modern dance classes. Like, I was a dance major at BYU. And so I didn't just do ballroom growing up.
Okay.
I liked all of it. Um anyway, so now I'm finally getting to your to answer your original question. When I graduated from BYU, I decided that I wanted to try getting a master's degree in modern dance. I
Okay.
did succeed. I shouldn't say try. I decided to go for a master's degree in modern dance. I went to the University of Utah here in Salt Lake City. That was a fantastic experience. It really immersed me in that side of the world. Um, and about halfway through my first year of my grad work, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really missing ballroom dance. And so that's when I went professional.
Okay.
And I asked a really good friend who was on the ballroom company with me. I was like, hey, nudge, nudge, would you like to start competing in the professional world with me? And he was like, yeah, I think that'd be great. And so that was my first, his name is Nathan Cashin. He was my first professional dance partner. And I did that all while doing grad work. It was crazy, but I figured it out. Like, I would be in school during the weeks and then I would kind of disappear on the weekend and go compete with him and then come right back and keep doing school, et cetera, et cetera. So that is how I got into the professional ranks because I was missing it terribly while I was working on my modern dance master's degree.
Gotcha. That I could not even imagine trying to really go for a professional career competition wise in ballroom dance while also studying for a master's degree. all props to you. You have much better time management skills than I do.
I don't know if that's completely true, but I definitely have that personality where like if I decide I want something, I go all in. I'm not a half. I mean, I shouldn't say that's completely true. I've done a couple of things in my life that I've kind of half been in, half been out. But when it comes to dance, I feel like it's like I've got to be all in or all out. I can't be halvesies.
Yeah, I definitely hear you there.
Yeah.
So you've been teaching for how long?
Oh, yes. So I was really, I'm really grateful and thankful I had an opportunity to start teaching while at BYU. Um, there's the social dance program at BYU. Like besides their ballroom teams and classes, they have a whole social dance program, and they have a lot of the tour team members who are on the top company. They will teach some of those beginner level classes. So that's
Oh,
really
okay.
where my teaching ballroom started, was in the college atmosphere, and I did that for I think 3 or 4 years, and then it continued from there.
Mm-hmm.
I think I started really teaching privates for the first time when I was about either oh no, I had finally graduated from college and started teaching privates. That's about when I started adding on privates, mostly
Okay.
because back back in my day, you
Yeah.
weren't allowed to teach privates until you were professional.
Same here.
That's not the
Yeah.
case. Yeah, that's not the case nowadays. And so you see a lot of college students who are teaching privates. Anyway, we don't have to get into that specific, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of where my teaching really began, was at BYU in the social dance program.
Yeah, I think on the topic of amateurs teaching and not going pro, that could be a whole hour episode all on
Oh,
itself. That's
we can talk about that another day.
yeah.
So
That's another another episode with a big disclaimer that's just okay. These are our candid opinions on how that whole system works. Um, so you grew up in Utah, started dancing in Utah, taught in Utah, and then 5 years ago you moved to Kansas.
yes, well, now it's almost going to be 6 years
Oh
because we
wow.
moved. So we lived in Kansas for 5 years, and we just moved back to Utah in July. Well, my husband kind of popped back here in June because he had to get started on his job, and then I
Mhm.
kind of like followed. So we'll be celebrating a year of living here in a couple of months. So it feels really weird. It doesn't feel like it's
Mhm.
been that long, but it has been. So yeah,
Yeah.
a little over 6 years ago, we
And
moved to Kansas.
was the initial move for your husband's work, or were you hired on to a studio
Yes.
there? Okay.
No, it was for his job. And I'll never forget when people were like, wait a second, you want to go to Kansas? Do you know anything about the dance scene? And I was like, no, but I was like, it's okay. I'll figure it out when I get there. So, and
Yeah.
which I did. It was a fantastic experience. Dearly miss all my students. I actually, before this whole coronavirus thing hit, I was
Mhm.
still going back once a month to teach,
Wow.
which was so wonderful. It was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, same situation. We both grew up on the East Coast, and my husband was offered a job out in Salt Lake City, and folks were like, "You're moving to Utah?" It's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah,
Yeah.
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 That's where the job is. That's where we're gonna go." And I hear it's a dance mecca, so either I'll be really, really lucky and be okay, or I'll be in a whole lot of trouble. But so
Yeah.
far, it's worked out, which has been kind of nice. But yeah, that I feel like that first 6 months in a new city, especially as a dance instructor, can be a little bit um, overwhelming and scary and unsure, especially if you're
Right.
used to teaching independently. Here in Utah, we don't. I mean, we now have a franchise studio, but we haven't in the last 5 or 6 years at least had franchise studios. I'm assuming when you were teaching here, you were teaching independently.
Yes, teaching independently, teaching classes at different studios. I also, while I was in grad school, I got roped in, and actually, I make that sound like a bad thing. It was a fantastic thing, to being in charge of the ballroom club at the University of Utah. I was like
Oh,
their
nice.
director. I did all of their choreography at one point. Like right before I graduated, I had built the program up to like 75 students, something like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So leaving leaving all of that behind was definitely really, really hard, like going to Kansas. But the other thing too is my son, my oldest. So I have two little boys. My oldest, who's behind this wall right here, he was just barely 7 or 8 months old when we were moving to Kansas. And
Oh.
so and I was also still writing my thesis for my grad work. And so when we got to Kansas, I literally was like, I'm not even going to worry about trying to find a place to teach at until he was a little bit older and I was still writing my thesis. And so I was like, I can't even think about trying to get involved into a dance scene until those two big things were complete. So I definitely had a good probably 6 months of downtime where I wasn't really teaching. I wasn't really dancing myself. I mean, I would dance in my living room, but
Mm-hmm.
I was so focused on being a new mom and writing my thesis. So that was really good to have that break. And then I remember right, let's see. I probably don't even have to get into this story, but I'll just tell it really quick.
Go for it.
I had like 2 days and I was about to fly out. This was in December of 2014.
Okay.
I was like, oh my gosh, okay, so I'm about to fly out in a couple days to go defend my thesis because I was able to defer my thesis a whole semester because I had a baby my last semester of school, which is also crazy. I would never recommend it, but it happened. And so I called a couple studios like a couple days before I flew out to defend my thesis. And I was like, hey, so moved here. I'm defending my thesis, but when I come back into town, I'd like to come and check out your studio. So as soon as I defended my thesis, I flew home. And 2 days later, I was already in studios looking at potential job opportunities and all of that. So like, I definitely make a move. As soon as I'm done with one thing, I'm like, okay, on to the next thing. So that's when I finally started teaching when Cal turned 1 years old in
Okay.
Kansas.
Wow. So I feel
Sorry.
like I feel like that transitions really well to the other thing that I really wanted to get into before we got into the Strictly and
Yeah.
SeneGence, is being a mom in the dance industry. So I feel like I've had two very different experiences, kind of with just general perceptions about being a woman instructor or a woman professional. Whether it's in ballroom or ballet or modern, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of just the general dance. I've heard from a lot of folks that like, oh, you're gonna decide to have kids and then you won't teach anymore, and you want to like work as hard as you possibly can and then wait as long as possible to have kids because once you have kids, you're pretty much done. And then I've heard the other camp, and it's been my personal experience with all of the women in my life that have had children, which is no, you take 6 months off to let your body recover and then you're back at it. And it's actually a great opportunity to be in the dance industry and have kids because you can set your own hours and you can work and teach classes when your spouse is at, is home, so you don't have to deal with a babysitter. And like there's a certain amount of flexibility that this industry lends that not all industries lend. So I wanted to get kind of your opinion having two kids and still being part of this dance community.
Yes, I'm excited to talk about this topic because you said it right. Well, there's one side that they're all about there's no way, and then the other side where it's like totally you can make it work. I feel like the stigma is still there. It has slowly, even in the last 10 years of what I have seen, has slowly started to disappear. And it's only because you see those top professionals, and I'm speaking strictly about ballroom right now, in the industry who have actually done it. And then it kind of sets the path and helps other professionals and other people just in general see it and go, oh, okay, so they can still make it work. I kind of I mean, my personality ever since I was really young, and my mom always always tells me this. She's like, you just have always had that go-to personality, like nothing's going to stop you. Um, which is true, but I've also had some really amazing dance coaches who have really set the stage for me personally and for many others. Um, I'll just give you like a little example, because this example I love giving to people because it makes them go, wow, and obviously we have to have help, but I feel like that's the case in any sort of industry or any sort of job,
Mhm.
right? Any working mother, they're gonna have to get help, whether it's from their spouse or it's they have a babysitter or they have a nanny or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, so here's my one example, because I didn't ever experience it to this extreme, but I definitely was like, wow, that is amazing. So one of my professional dance coaches, her name is Marjana.
Okay.
And I always slaughter her last name. It's like Stukarau or something. People know who they are. It's Marjana and Slavik, and
Yep.
they live in San Diego. You've probably heard of them, right?
I actually got coaching with Slavic earlier this year.
Yeah,
So, yes.
yeah. Phenomenal teachers, know their craft. They were
Mhm.
the 5-time US and world smooth champions in a row. And she had 2 kids, not too while doing that. She had one child before they really got into smooth, and I hope I'm saying this all correctly. And then she had a baby like right in the middle of those 5 years, or it was towards the end of the 5 years.
Yeah.
And she was definitely somebody who did not really take like a massive break. Like
Mhm.
I definitely took at least a 6-month break for both of my children. But like she competed until she was, 20 something weeks pregnant, and then took a break, had the baby, and then like 3 months later was back on the floor competing,
Yeah.
which I applaud. Like,
Oh, definitely.
good, amazing for her. And so this is the most amazing part of the story. So her mother would travel with them to competitions and watch the children at the competitions, as they would go on the floor and compete. Well, Marjana, also being like a super mom, would nurse her children until they were she would try at least until they were 1. And so the day that she told me that if I put my mind to it and if I really want it, that you can have it. And she told me this story about, she's like, I was 4 months postpartum, and I would, in between rounds, go up and nurse the baby and then come right back down and compete. I don't know if you've heard that story before.
I haven't. I have not. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
but
That's incredible.
I love that story. I never got to that point because like I said, I did take a little bit of a longer break um, with my kids. And I haven't gone back to competing professionally after my second child. My life kind of went down a little bit different path, but I did compete in between both of them. And yes, I had the help that I needed to be able to do it. And I compare our profession like any other profession. It's still going to be more difficult because our body is our tool,
Hmm.
right? And so, yeah, you've got to be careful. You've got to be in good shape. You've got to make sure you're taking care of yourself to
Yeah.
be able to do it and still while having children. It is difficult, but it's very doable.
Yeah. I,
Sorry, I kind of like went all over the place with that question.
No,
So,
that's awesome. That's awesome. And I think having those touchstones of this is someone that I knew in my life and this is how they did it and they were successful doing it is so important. I think having conversations with other women in the industry has really, at least for me personally, given me a more well-rounded idea of what is possible to do, whether it's if you want a family, these are how you can be successful in it, or if you don't want a family, this is how you can branch off and potentially build your brand and build your business. And these are the networking opportunities that we need to really make the extra step in the industry to make a connection in order to be successful. So I think women helping women and telling those stories about like this is the story that I heard that got me to the point where I was comfortable with doing X, Y, or Z is
right,
so important. So important.
right. And I know I told a story about somebody else, and I realized I should probably add a little story about myself because I did experience being pregnant and competing with students with my second child. And see, that's extremely doable. And I wasn't nervous about what people would think of me. Heck, I was like, you know what? I'd rather be a force for good and show people that you can still work and you can still do these things even while pregnant, because
Definitely.
that's also a stigma in the dance community, not just in the dance community, in general, is this idea that, oh, you're pregnant now, you can't dance anymore, or you can't work out, or you can't do these things. And it's like,
Which is such
no.
a 1950s way of thinking of it. Like,
Right?
as soon as the bump's out, you need to be on bed rest at home with your feet up.
Right.
It's like, no, that's not how life works.
Well, now I should add that there are some women who they need that. Their bodies need that.
Yeah.
Totally cool. No judgment against that. And
No.
I just want to be clear about that,
Yeah.
because I don't judge women who choose to do that, or their bodies, they struggle really bad with pregnancy. But what I do get upset about is when people are like, all pregnant women should be like that.
Yeah.
All pregnant women should not be allowed to do these things. And I'm like, well, okay, hold on, hold the phone. Number one, pregnancy like barely even affected me. I'm really, really blessed and really lucky. I think I threw up one time with both boys. I don't think I did not really experience pregnancy the way that some other people do.
Mhm.
So I'm extremely grateful for that. So I can't discount that. But yeah, it drives me bonkers when people are like, oh, wait a second, like, you're going to go compete 25 weeks pregnant. Like, what are people going to think wrong of you? Like, you're going to be dancing on the floor with another man. So pro-am, I'm speaking about pro-am. I kind of jumped the gun a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was competing with my students on the floor. The furthest I got was about 27 weeks, and I get really, really big.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one thing that did kind of pull me back from going beyond 27 weeks, because sooner or later I was holding dance frame and my belly was touching the other person. So that's when I was like, okay, now I should probably stop.
Yeah.
But I did teach all the way up until about 3 weeks before I had my second child. And I totally taught with the big pregnant belly and everything, and it didn't bug anybody. And it was so refreshing. And people would compliment me and they'd be like, I'm really impressed that you've been able to continue to teach and, sustain what you've been able to do. Yes, I had to pull back on my hours a little bit, because when you start to get in those 30 weeks, your body's tired and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're probably not pulling out the 3-inch heels to teach at 27 weeks.
Oh, no. I wore flat shoes. Totally. 100% did it. Anyway, I felt like I had to bring that up too, just because that is also something that I hear. Yeah. Oh, you're pregnant now? Are you going to stop dancing? No, I'm not going to stop dancing, because if you stop doing whatever activity you have been doing and you just become dormant for 9 months, how in the world are you going to get back into dancing afterwards? It's like impossible, right? You hear about these women who lift weights all the way through their pregnancy. Well, the only way they're able to do it is because they did it consistently, right? And if I would have tried to lift 50 pounds towards the end of my pregnancy, there's no way I could have done it. I probably would have injured myself, because I didn't lift weights during my pregnancy. I danced, Anyway, okay, sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. And yeah, I feel like more doctors are coming out now. Obviously, it's individual by individual. Everyone's health history and everyone's experience is different. But I feel like more and more doctors now are saying, whatever physical activity you did prior, keep doing it, because that's going to help you. That's going to help baby. That's going to help your recovery. That's going to help everything. So obviously everybody's different, but I love the fact that you're willing to share the fact that, you did it and you enjoyed it, and that it is doable. It is feasible for people to do that in the industry, which is great. Let's pivot just a little bit. So SeneGence. When and how did that come into your life? And then what is it for folks that aren't familiar with it?
Sure. So SeneGence is a makeup skincare company and it is an MLM. So I'm just going to say it flat out. It is an MLM where, I'm a distributor of the company, and I I have the choice to either buy the products at discount for myself, or I actually turn it into a business and I sell the makeup and the skincare for a small profit that comes back to me. I joined 3 years ago and I'm still doing it, and I absolutely love it. I feel like I'm still pretty full force. Like I never really stopped. I mean, I had a period where I had to slow down a little bit, but like I'm so grateful I've had it during this whole coronavirus thing, because I've been able to still sell products and do things. That's what's all behind me. This is the office, my office that I'm in.
The wall of product.
The wall of product. I had a bunch of pictures like sitting up there, but my husband took them down. He had to like move this big chest of something, whatever, behind me. Anyway, so I've been doing that, and I got involved honestly because of my dancing. Like I knew that they would tie in so perfectly. Number one, because, and I'm wearing a lip sense color, and if anyone's heard of lip sense, that's what it is. People don't realize that SeneGence is like the company that sells lip sense. Anyway, so lip sense, for anyone that has no idea what it is, it doesn't come off at all. It doesn't come off. And I remember I was dancing one day, and actually I was dancing in college, and I heard about lip sense way back in college, but I didn't even give it the time of day. And I can't believe I didn't give it the time of day. And people would be like, you should wear this because then it won't actually come off onto your dance costumes. And, then you're not going to have to like reapply your lipstick in between rounds. And you can drink water, in between rounds, and not have to like fidget with your lips.
Yep.
And anyway, so I started getting involved with it those 3 years ago in the middle of dancing professionally. And I was like, I don't know why I waited. So, and their entire makeup line is budge proof. This is waterproof. The makeup is what's the word? Now I'm losing it. Not waterproof, water resistant.
Okay.
And so then I was like, ooh, maybe I should start trying like the eyeshadows for my dancing and the foundation. I really want to test this out. I really want to see if the makeup really does what it says when I'm dancing rounds on the floor and coming off the floor. And it totally does. It does what it says. My makeup will stay for an entire concert, an entire show, an entire whatever. So really, I ended up getting involved in SeneGence because of my dancing, because I was like so impressed with the way that the makeup stayed on my face, wouldn't move. I could still, like I said, drink water in between rounds and not have to fix my lip sense or my lips. So anyway, that's how I got involved. And they really coincide. They go together really nicely. So
Definitely. I do not have any makeup skill at all. I was not a girly girl growing up, so I did not wear a lot of makeup. My mom never wore makeup. I don't even think she wore lipstick to our wedding, to be honest. So I didn't really have a good guidepost on like how to do makeup or how to wear it. My experience was always show makeup for ballet recitals or tap recitals. But the times that I've gone to competition and had my makeup done, almost everyone now is exclusively using lip sense for that very reason, because they can put it on at 4 a.m. when they've got 100 clients set up for the day, and that and your hair is not going to move or change at all for the rest of the competition. And I think it's really cool that that's the case. And there's a gloss that you can put over so it doesn't feel like dried out or crackly or stuff. Right.
So the gloss is what sets the color in place for the day, and you just kind of gloss throughout the day when you need to, or gloss right before you eat so that you don't lose any of the pigment. Because what it essentially is it's pigment that's floating in a bottle in denatured alcohol, and as soon as you put the color on your lips, that denatured alcohol, it's called cosmetic grade alcohol, basically floats away and leaves behind the pigment. So that's how the pigment adheres to your skin, and it's not a bad thing at all. I mean, we have something called Oops Remover where you can take off the lip sense at the end of the day. But anyway, yeah, you're right. I got involved because of that. And if anyone has ever tried to remove like traditional lipstick from a shirt or even a dance costume, we all know how difficult that is.
Oh, yes.
And getting lipstick like on a, sometimes 2,000, 3,000, $5,000 costume, it's difficult to get it out. And it's also like, dang it, I just got my $7 lipstick from Walmart on this really expensive costume.
Yep.
I can't believe I just did that. So,
or worse, you give your partner or student a hug at the end of your round, and
right.
suddenly your bright red lipstick is on top of their white collar, and they have to figure out how to get it off for the rest of the day. It's like,
right.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to find ways that you can minimize that and spray tan transfer as much as possible.
Right. But so I want to also just mention this last thing about SeneGence. I guess another reason I got involved is because I wanted to see if I could have another form of income. And I was like, I know I could easily share this magic, amazing lipstick and other skincare and other products with my students. Basically, anyone that I would come in contact with the studio, I would always do something called wearing my stripes, where I'd put some stripes. I don't have them on today. Actually, this one is old. It's starting to fade. It's starting to come off. And I'd wear those into the studio, and that's how I would get customers and people to buy from me. And it's been a fantastic extra little income on the side to have. And I definitely consider myself an entrepreneur, not just from the SeneGence side of things, but also from the dance side of things. And so I was not afraid to jump into something like this. It's kind of funny. We've talked about the stigma of being pregnant in dancing, and then there's also the stigma of selling products for an MLM company, right?
Yes.
That's also a huge stigma.
Just selling products, I feel like, because I feel like,
and I'm like,
yeah.
Right. And it's like, well, everybody does this. Everybody does this. You're walking around in the dance studio. Oh my gosh, I love your hair today. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. Where'd you get your, what kind of hairspray are you using? We all do it. We all share something we love with our friends and family, right? So I fell in love with a product that actually has a really good purpose. It's not just, oh, it looks so pretty on your face. It serves an amazing purpose of, I'm teaching all day long. I don't have to touch it up in between students. I can go all day long confidently knowing that my mouth isn't going to look funky at the end of the day of teaching, right? Or a dance competition, whatever. And so when MLMs get like a really bad rap, I'm like, I don't think you understand what it is. It's, I'm sharing the love of a product that actually works, that is a good product. It's not just me trying to get you to buy something that doesn't work, or is, you know what I mean? And anyway, I'm probably getting a little off topic. I guess I wanted to share that because that is also a funny stigma that is still floating around, And it's like, why is it such a bad thing? I'm making extra money for my family, and my husband very much appreciates it. He loves knowing that he can write off this office on our taxes. He loves knowing that he can write off my computer sitting over there.
Well, and I think you made a really good point that in a situation, I mean, none of us could have predicted that this would happen,
right.
But in a world where we legally are not allowed to go teach in a lot of cities and countries, where we may be able to convince students that they want to take virtual lessons over Zoom or Skype, but a lot are resistant.
I've done a few.
Yeah. A lot are resistant to that, or you have to dramatically change your prices in order to encourage students that they're still getting value for their money. It's great that you have this side hustle that you can still do from home, that you can still have that extra income, and that you aren't going to be as stressed. I'm sure you are still stressed, but as stressed about, are you going to be able to cover bills at the end of the day? I'm very lucky that my husband has been employed through this whole process, and that I've been able to kind of branch out and do things like this podcast or the Twitch streams that I do during the week. But I kind of wish now that I had jumped into something where I could sell a product from home. I know we might talk after this.
Yes, you are 100% right. Like, I jumped in not knowing what it could potentially do for me and my family. It has done more. And just like dance, like, I get to choose how many hours I teach and how much I really want to put into my dance business. And I do consider my dancing a business because
Mm-hmm.
I am making money for my family. I am when I dance, and I know we haven't talked about this yet, but dancing for Health Center Theater and Strictly Ballroom, I was being paid to do
Mm-hmm.
that. And I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. People don't think you can make money in the arts. You
Yeah.
can. You have to be smart about it, right?
Yeah, you have to know what you're getting into, and you have to know at the end of the day how many hours are you putting in versus what the
Right.
paycheck is going to be, and does it
Right.
make sense to do that? Yep.
Right. And so to continue my kind of my thought I was having, I get to choose how much time I put into my SeneGence business.
Mm-hmm.
And I have put a lot of time into it during this coronavirus situation because I'm not putting as much in my dance. And it's really nice to be able to kind of, um, and I don't feel like I was starting over in my SeneGence business, but because I hadn't put as much time into it leading up to that, I had to really ramp it back up. And it took me about a week to ramp it back up, but that's okay because I've ramped it back up to the point where I have made enough money and plus some extra money to pay for all of the groceries in the last 2 months, to pay for some extra little things. Like I decided, oh, I really need to go to Walmart and get like bubbles for the boys and and get, maybe I should go ahead and invest in that little bike for my son because he has nothing else to do. So yes, it's been fabulous to have another business, and I personally don't call it like a side business or like a hobby. I
Mm-hmm.
call it a business. It
Yeah.
is a business, and I choose how much time and effort I want to put into it. um so yes, it's been so wonderful to have. So I'm so grateful for it, especially because I haven't been able to teach dance and my husband's pay did get cut in half during this time, which has been difficult, but they're guaranteeing that it will go back up in about a couple weeks, so we'll see what happens with that.
Hopefully that is the case. I know that Utah has now moved to the moderate phase as of last Friday, for whatever that
Yes.
means, for however long that lasts. But hopefully
Yeah.
that means that people's hours will start increasing, and that financial wise, people will start breathing a
Yeah.
little bit easier. But I'm sure it's going to take a while to kind of ease some of those stressors. You did mention Strictly, so let's
Yes.
go ahead. We've put it off long enough.
Yeah.
let's talk Strictly. So, if you were here for our little tester stream with Hannah Smith, we talked a little bit about like what.
Oh, you interviewed Hannah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We talked a little bit about the fact that Strictly Ballroom premiered, had its U.S. premiere at the Hale Center. It's the musical based off of the movie, which is still one of my favorite ballroom based movies of all time.
It's a classic.
Yes. Fun 80s pop songs, terrible wigs and costumes, questionable Australian accents. But what was your experience? What was the audition process like? And then the training process leading up to premiere day?
Okay, so let's see. Our family had just moved back to Utah when when the auditions were about to happen for Strictly Ballroom. And when you're, I guess, I don't want to make this sound like, okay, I'm just going to say it. If
Go
it
for it.
sounds a little like, look at me, it's not meant to come off that way, okay? So when you're involved, when you're someone like me involved in a dance community where it's very tight knit and you kind of know everybody,
Mhm.
sometimes these type of opportunities come up and you're approached. I was somebody that was approached about auditioning, which I was very like, oh my gosh, you think a 30-year-old, which I'm 32, I was like, you think a 32-year-old could pull off, being a dancer in the show? And I have two children. Like, I was very, very honored that I would be approached. Number one,
Mhm.
I wasn't approached and said, "Hey, you're in the show." It was like, "Hey, we really need someone like you to come audition for the show. Will you please come audition?" And so, I was very honored to be asked to come audition. And kind of little side story, the reason I got asked is I was working on another project. I had choreographed a dance thing for a film piece, And one of the dancers in the film was the choreographer for Strictly Ballroom.
Oh, okay.
And so that's how I kind of got told about this, is because I was driving her back to her car. It's Afton Wilson, Afton Del Grosso Wilson. And that's when she told me, she's like, Krista, you really need to come audition. I'm the choreographer. It would be so great. And I was like, okay. So went to the audition. It was the first time in years I had auditioned for anything, because being a professional ballroom dancer, like, I mean, okay, the last time I had auditioned for anything was auditioning for grad school, which was back in 2010. So that gives you a little perspective. So it was intimidating. I'm not afraid to admit it. It was a little intimidating to walk into a room. No one really knew who I was, because I hadn't been around for about 5 years. And so there were a lot of new faces and people that I didn't recognize from the dance community here. Well, dance community here in Utah.
Yeah.
And I did feel a little intimidated, because I could sense, I was like, okay, she's 19. I can just tell by the way she moves, and she looks really young. I was like, I'm probably the oldest female dancer in this room. I probably am, which ended up to be true. I was the oldest female auditioner, and I was also the oldest female dance ensemble cast member in the show. So that was a little intimidating. Being in rehearsals, it was an awesome kick in the pants. It was like, this feels like college again, because we'd be in rehearsals from about 6:30 or 7. It depended on our call time, until 10, sometimes 11 o'clock at night. And so I'd go to, well, first off, I would teach from usually 2 until about 5 or 5:30, and then have to jump into my car and go straight to rehearsal. And so I would leave my house. I think my husband almost killed me over this particular show. So I'd leave my house at like 1:30 in the afternoon and wouldn't get home till midnight during the majority of the rehearsal process. And we rehearsed for a good 2.5 months, I want to say. And then the show began. And that was a little bit easier, because the show was double cast.
Right.
And so I was the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday cast. And so my husband really liked that better, because
you were at least home a couple nights a week.
Right. I was at least home a couple nights a week. Gave my body a little bit of a rest. I don't have a lot of singing experience, but apparently I sang well enough to be in the show. And so it also gave my voice a little bit of rest in between days. Anyway, I don't know what else you want me to say about that, but that's kind of the experience I had.
No, that's great. And I think you kind of hit on an interesting point in the beginning, that we were talking about, how do you succeed in business being an artist? And I think a lot of it comes down to building out your social network to a point where, when an opportunity becomes available, you at least know the person that maybe knows the person that knows the person that's in the room, right? So you kind of get, you get people reaching out to you saying, oh, did you know that this was an opportunity? We'd really love to have you audition or try out or put in your resume or what have you.
When you get to that point in your career, you honestly feel like you've made it. That's how I feel. I understand that, sometimes they just say, will you just come do this role or whatever? But most of the time, if you're being invited to come to an audition, that's a really good sign.
Absolutely.
Right? But yes, to go back and talk about the importance of building your social network, like putting in the hours of, let's see. And in my specific case, I was a very competitive ballroom dancer. And in that world, the importance of getting titles so that you can actually have a career in teaching and in performing, that is really important in the ballroom world. In the theater world, it's more of like, how much have you performed in your life? That kind of a thing. So that was definitely a different shift, but it was really nice to be trusted with being in such an important US premiere at the Health Center Theater, in their largest theater. to be trusted with that, even though I had done zero theater, zero theater. But because I'd had enough background in competing as a pro, I'd gained those titles. I'm just grateful that they trusted me enough to be like, okay, she hasn't done any theater, but she's at least done all of this other stuff in the ballroom world. Let's give her a go. So that was humbling. It was exciting. It was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for the opportunity. That's why I talk about that.
and Hannah had a similar story in that because of the nature of Strictly Ballroom, and because Afton and the director kind of wanted to really, I mean, you're in Utah. You are in an area that has 2 universities that have ballroom dance.
Ballroom Mecca. Yeah.
Exactly. Because they wanted to really push the ballroom end of things, I think for this specific cast, they were looking specifically for what is the top tier ballroom dancer quality that we can achieve. And then hopefully these people can also sing and act. But I think the dance was kind of the primary, like, we need to get quality dancers and the rest we can teach, hopefully. You want to find like that triple threat that can come in and already has all 3. But I think because of the nature of this specific program, it was like, we need to get the good ballroom dancers that are still in Utah.
Right. And they definitely needed that because the show was put together in a very short period of time. And it's like, there are some amazing musical theater people who are triple threats. They have the dance background, they have the singing, they have the acting. Their dance background may not be ballroom, but they can still dance. And it's like, we could easily teach our musical theater people how to dance ballroom, but because they had a shorter amount of time to prepare the show, it's like, let's get the ballroom dancers in the show so that we can speed through the process a little bit quicker, which was smart. I think it was smart of them.
Absolutely. I wanted to get your take on trying to dance ballroom for a theater in the round, because I feel like that has its own challenges, shall we say.
Different experience. When I finally got a hang of it, I was like, this is cool. This is so cool to claim that I've danced in the round. For those who haven't thought about this, I'll just kind of spell it out. When you dance in a show, the majority of us dancers dance on a stage, a proscenium stage, where you've got 3 closed off walls, and only 1 wall, which is the audience, right? Yeah. And so we all talk about, well, where's front? Where's the front? Well, in a round theater, there's no front. Every single direction you face is a front. And so I really applaud Afton Del Grosso Wilson. I always forget to say her official last name. For being able to create choreography that could be seen from all 4 directions. Because that's hard. Like, you have to make sure that the choreography is going to look good on all 4 directions, and you're not going to accidentally play to only one side of the around. Is that how you say it? The round. Yeah, sorry. See, I'm still like learning this terminology. I kind of feel a little dorky that I don't know it all perfectly yet, and I was in a like a really big musical. So I applaud her for it. But even like as a dancer who's never experienced it, I really had to think and had to put some effort into, okay, so if they can see me over here, like, what are they seeing? What are they seeing? Dancing in the round was not only a really cool new experience, but getting on and off the stage was really difficult for the first 2 weeks, because you go backstage, and I know not everyone has ever been backstage at Health Center Theater, but I'll just give you a little breakdown. The theater, or not the stage. The stage was a square stage, not square. rectangular stage. Did you see the musical?
I did. I was actually there for premiere night, and I saw. I didn't get a chance to say hi because I don't think we've ever been formally introduced. But I did see your hubby and Cal, and the excitement on his face every time he caught sight of you was just absolutely adorable.
It was so magical. I was like, no, this is why I still love to perform and have my child here because he literally was popping up and down in his seat going, hi mom, hi mom. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, if he keeps doing that, I'm going to forget my choreography. But anyway, back to the stage. And I'm really grateful that you got to see it.
Yeah.
So you saw that there were what we call 4 different VOMs, places that we can come on and off the stage. And behind those VOMs is a big circle. And so you can walk any direction to get onto the stage.
Oof.
But they had them labeled backstage, luckily, VOM 1, 2, 3, and 4. But there was so many times I would come off the stage and be like, wait a second, do I run right or do I run left to get ready for the next scene?
Right.
Because there was so many quick changes. I don't know if you remember that.
There was a quick change on set, if I remember correctly. Like the first opening scene, you guys have to get into full standard attire.
No, that did get changed.
Okay.
That did get changed. It used to be the women that would change into a dress on stage, and then we were having so many issues, and like we had so many issues that we changed it to the men putting on their standard coats, which made so much more sense. But
yeah,
we literally would run off the stage, get in our standard dress, and come right back in. And it was maybe a 30-second quick change. It was so fast. And we were putting the dress over the top of another dress. So it wasn't even getting out of a dress and putting on a new one. We didn't have time to do that. It was just put it over that one. You're going to go off the stage in 2 seconds and take it off anyway. But yeah, like it took some time to get used to trying to figure out and memorize which direction do you run. Because I had so many times where I was partnered with Spencer Muir, and he just really graduated from UVU. And I remember we'd both go off the stage and we would split, and we'd be like, wait a second, I was supposed to go the other direction. And you can't just jump across and go the other direction because the VOM itself could be seen by the audience. There was no curtains covering. So if you ran off and ran the wrong direction, too bad. You had to keep running that direction. Like you couldn't change it. And so we learned pretty quickly the right and the wrong directions to run, because if you made a mistake, you might be late getting on for your next scene. So it was an experience for sure.
Yeah. And I think too, in the traditional theater setup where you have a stage, you've got the curtains, and then you've got, stage left, stage right to come off.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit easier to slow down the scene transitions, because if you needed to give your cast a long amount of time, you could pull the curtains and then open the curtains back up, or you could play with set lighting or create some sort of distraction to cover up the fact that it's taking a little bit longer for someone to get changed. But with theater in the round, because your audience is looking down on the stage and there are no curtains, I think the cast is just constantly having to move and run and go. Those timings have to be so perfect and so seamless so that you don't have any lag time where the audience is waiting for the next thing to happen. So I can only imagine the chaos that's going on behind every single time.
So much chaos going on backstage, but that was almost my favorite part of being in the show. Like seeing the major chaos for the first 2 weeks and then it finally settling. It was just like, wow, that's cool. I love paying attention to the process of things, the process of the audition, the process of creating something. What is the process like when you're in the middle of the show? Because there's a process going on, right? And yeah, it was chaos backstage for a couple of weeks until we all kind of settled into figuring it out. And you're so right. You said something that like people don't always realize. When you're in the round with zero curtains and no way to like save yourself, the whole show is being run based off of the main characters. So you're just waiting to hear their line and then that's your cue to go. So the entire show was run off of the characters and the cast members. There was no specific lighting cues. There was no specific, well, actually, I should say no. There were some, but I mean, like the vibe of how to run the show was based on us. It was completely 100% based on us, which is different, but it was really thrilling and exciting. And like, okay, she said, what word did she say the word yet? Do we go? Do we go? Okay, we go now.
Right.
So that was exciting.
And I think too, so I went and saw the, I guess, last dress rehearsal before it officially opened. So I saw it the Tuesday night before the Wednesday open, or maybe a Thursday night before the Friday open, whichever the last dress rehearsal of the Tuesday, Thursday cast was. So two things. The first was, and I know that I think on Hannah's Instagram, you guys addressed this. It took me until the second act to find Hannah because I thought she was one of your sisters.
Oh, really?
And it was killing me because she was the entire reason why I was there. She had given me tickets for my husband and I to come see it. And the entire time I was like, okay, I see Krista, but I can't find Hannah. And I was like, so whatever was going on with the wigs on that cast made the two of you look identical.
So many people told us that. Some people would be like, were you over there? And I'd be like, no, that's Hannah. Wait, you're over here? Yes, that was me. Yeah, we got that. And like Hannah would come into the dressing room and be like, do you know how many people think that I'm you and you're me or whatever? They keep confusing us. And I'm like, that's so funny. Yeah.
Something about both of you being in dark brunette wigs and the way that you guys were doing your makeup made you look identical. And you don't in real life. So. Yeah.
Well, we kind of did compare ourselves. We were like, okay, let's put ourselves we put our hair in a ponytail one night after the show and stood next to each other and we're like, okay, we have like the same looking neck and we have a very similar jawline, like feature wise. So that, and even some of our structure of our body is got some similarities. And so I could totally see how people were confusing us, which I totally took as a compliment. Cause I was like, Hannah hasn't had children and she is like this fit queen over there. I'm like, you can think I'm Hannah all day long. I'm okay with that.
I'll take the comparison.
I will take it. I gladly took it. But yeah, it was interesting. So I actually, what I did before people came and saw the show, I would send them pictures of me in my wigs so they could find me, because I discovered before the show was even put in front of an audience, I was like, people are not going to know where I am unless I tell them what wig I'm wearing. And I'm really grateful and glad that the theater put us all in very different wigs. So nobody was in the same wig. I mean, yes, I was in the same wig as my double. So we matched in that sense, but I never had a similar wig compared to anybody else in the whole cast. And it was nice. I really think that's smart that Hill Center Theater does that.
Yeah. The wigs were definitely memorable, shall we say.
Right. Sorry.
You're fine. The other thing that I was going to say, I think going back to the idea that the show was really run by the cast, or at least it was timed and paced by the cast. The night that I went, there was, again, it was the last dress rehearsal before it went premiere, so there were a couple of mishaps and missteps.
You saw like the worst run of the whole show. I'm like so sad you did.
If that was the worst run, you guys killed it. Because I still enjoyed it. Like I could tell that there were a couple things that went incorrectly. There was a lift that I was very nervous about. But what I was going to say is I feel like you guys had to learn improv in addition to acting and singing and dancing. Because the night that I went, the banner dropped and hit the stage, which obviously it was not supposed to do.
No, it wasn't supposed to fall.
But whoever the actor of the lead's father, I'm forgetting the character name.
Yeah, Scott's father.
he acted so quickly and was like, aha, I'm going to react to this. I'm going to react in character and I'm just going to pull it off stage. And he got an applause and a laugh and it was fantastic. So did you ever find yourself needing to make those improv judgments because either someone was in the wrong space or the music was off or the timing was off?
Yeah. I can't think of like one particular moment. I feel like everyone was so professional, and that was probably one of maybe two, maybe three moments like that that happened the entire run. And so my run as being an ensemble member and being just a support to the main cast or to the lead roles, really nothing drastic for me really ever happened. So no, I can't think of anything. I did add to my character a little bit as time went on. Like I did not do this in the show that you saw because it took me some time to discover like what I wanted to do. So I was one of the auditionees who danced with Scott, and I was the first person that came out. And for anyone who went to Strictly Ballroom at Hell Center Theater and saw it, I came storming out with like awful dance technique, and I was dancing to the "I'm so excited, I just can't" like, and so I was doing some ridiculous dance moves, and I was supposed to be this really excited dancer to audition with Scott and basically make a fool of myself. That's what, was my part. And so that part slowly changed a little bit all the way through until the last run. Like towards the end, I would always add this like little head bird moment because I discovered it got this like major laugh. And I learned I shouldn't add something for the sake of laughing, but I was like, hey, it keeps working, so I'll just keep adding it into the show. So, but to answer your actual question, the answer is no.
So. But I would say what you just said would actually be a yes. That you were reacting. You had your character outline, you knew what beats you were supposed to hit, but depending on the crowd reaction and depending on kind of your mood that day, you would tweak it just a little bit here and there to make it a unique experience every single time. I feel like that's the definition of improv, is like making it up as you go along. So yeah, creating those little character quirks for different shows, I think 100% would be the case there. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool. I do have one comment from the chat, and it was from a while ago. Sorry, Mom. Apparently, yes, you did wear lipstick at my wedding. I was incorrect when I said that earlier.
You did. You wore lipstick during your wedding. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So anything else that you want to talk about, plug, chat about before we wrap things up for the day?
Oh, goodness. I guess since I kind of got a little bit on the if you put your mind to it, you can do anything you want train, I think I'd like to finish with that kind of that thought. I so often hear people say they can't do something. So this little bit of advice I want to leave with everybody is not necessarily dance advice. It's not, businessy in particular to SeneGence. It's just a life tip, I feel like. Because I do feel like in my life, I've had to battle quite a bit to really get to where I've wanted to be. My husband has multiple sclerosis. He was diagnosed on our 1-year anniversary. There was a lot of questioning of how am I going to ever get to really be passionate about what I love, because maybe I'm going to have to take care of him, or I'm going to have to really find a job right now, right this second, that will make sure that provides for our family. Like, I feel like I've had a lot of little things like that to battle, you know, and I wouldn't say having children is a battle, but it is definitely difficult to balance finding ways to still do the thing that you love, to turn it into a business, you know. Okay, so hopefully you catch my drift of where I'm going with this.
Yes, absolutely.
All of this leads me to say that if you really want something in life, go for it. Ask for help. Don't be afraid of the bumps that are going to come along in the road, because those only make you stronger. Put on your blinders and don't let people sway you one way or the other. Because that's also a really big factor that we never talked about, you know, judgment of others.
Oh, definitely.
And you start to question yourself and go, wait a second, like they made a really good point. You know, like I'm not going to say who, but I have had people that are like, you really think you're going to be, wait, you are in grad school and you're dancing perfect. Wait a second. You're in grad school and you got pregnant. You're going to have a baby. Maybe you shouldn't finish. Like,
yeah,
those voices, whether they're a real voice or a voice that you make up in your head, you have to learn how to just keep going forward. Because I still get those voices, you know, when people comment and they're like, how do you do it all, Krista? Or I can't believe you're doing that. Like, good for you. Well, here's the thing. They might have never said that after the fact. They probably were the people that were judging and being like, I can't believe she's doing that. Like, she's got children at home. Well, you know, I have done everything I possibly could to make sure that my children are cared for. They are, you know, I have an amazing husband who supports me and is willing to let me run with it, not just because it's a passion, but because I can support our family in the business aspect. And so anyway, overall, I just say you have to put your blinders on and you have to go for it. And you have to be willing to ask for help sometimes. And you also have to be willing to be like, I don't care what you're thinking right now, because I have this end goal and I'm going to get there. So that is how I wanted to end. That's not how I want to end this conversation. I just wanted to put that out into the space. There you go.
I love that. Yeah, there will always be naysayers. There will always be doubters. But if you, in your core, are passionate about something, if you know that you want to pursue something, if you are set on your path, listen for the supportive voices in your life and cling to those, and make sure that you are surrounding yourself with people that will call you if you're doing something stupid. Like, they will give you constructive feedback, but that are going to help you along your path, not put hurdles up for you. And especially if you are in the arts industry, or if you have someone in your family that's in the arts industry, it is a business, it is a career choice, it is a real job. And you need to support them like it's a real job, because it is. If that means following them on Instagram, or making sure that you like every post that they put out, or tuning into their silly, you know, podcast stream once a week. That is... Oh
my gosh, it is not silly, by the way. You have to take that out of your vocabulary right now. It is not silly. It is fantastic. I love that you're doing it. It's great. And sorry, I didn't mean to like cut you off, but what you just said about like following them on Facebook or following them on Instagram or liking this and liking that, like, for example, my husband is not on Facebook. He's not on Instagram. Would I enjoy if he liked my stuff? Probably. But what I really appreciate more is that he's like, sure, I need to watch the children tonight, so you can jump on and do a makeup tutorial for people, because when they see you do it, they typically buy from you. Like, having someone that can be supportive in any way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing that I am grateful for and that I'm thankful for, and I think he's actually watching right now, so sorry,
awesome.
is the fact that my husband, who is not a dancer, who is not an artsy person, who thinks a lot of it is just like hippie woo-woo nonsense, shows up to every competition that I ask him to. to. If I need him to drive me somewhere because I've got 50 million things in my head and the idea of driving somewhere is just not going to happen, whether it's a competition or a show, he hops in the car and just comes with me. He helps me do my tech setup because I'm not a tech person, and he is 100% game with the fact that this is something that I'm driven to do and this is something that I'm passionate about. He doesn't get it always, but he's there. And that, yeah, absolutely. That is
he's
so
a keeper.
important. Yes. Yeah, I think I'll keep him for a little while longer.
Yeah. Wow. We could be like besties because we both have like a similar setup. My husband's the same way, and I'm so eternally grateful for it. So he's amazing.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, now that you're back in Salt Lake, once we can actually go out and like have a cup of coffee with folks, we should definitely do that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Krista, so much for being a guest.
You're welcome.
If you are interested in either purchasing makeup or just learning more about or giving her a lot of support, you can find her Facebook group, Derington Dance, all about her lovely dance career. And you can follow makeup tips and tricks on her Instagram at Kiss Couture by KD. Those links are going to be in the description box below when this goes over to YouTube and is in podcast form, but they're also right below her picture right now on screen if you just want to copy those down somewhere and give her a thumbs up. Again, thank you so much for being on. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next week for my lovely guest, Martin Skupinski, owner of Ballroom Utah Dance Studio.
Martin.
I got Martin. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So enjoy the rest of your week. Have a lovely rest of your day, and we'll see you later.